Good morning, students. I hope you are well. Now, today we are going to look at information system security lessons for the MSc 101 and CMM 102 cohorts. Now, first of all, let's look at the definition of a computer security. Now, computer security is also known as information technology security. This is the protection of computer systems and networks from unauthorized access, unauthorized theft, damage, or disruption. Now, it also includes a range of measures and controls which are aimed at safeguarding the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the assets. Now, what are security goals? Now, security goals basically are three, known as the CIA triad. That is C for confidentiality, that is protecting information from unauthorized access. Second is integrity, meaning that we maintain the accuracy and the consistency of data by preventing unauthorized modification and, of course, destruction. The third one is availability. This is to ensure that authorized users have timely and reliable access to information that they need. Now, let's move on to hazards to information security. Now, hazards are also known as exposures. These basically are potential loopholes, potential vulnerabilities that could pose a threat to information security. Now, the common ones include natural disasters. These are acts of God. Things like floods, fires, earthquakes, which can disrupt the operations and, of course, end up compromising the data. Secondly, we have human error. These are accidental actions or mistakes by users like you and me, which can lead to losses such as data loss, security breaches, and of course, system malfunctions. It can make the computer not function properly. Then we have technological failures. These are brought about by the system malfunctions, software issues, or even hardware failures. This can disrupt operations and can potentially expose sensitive information. Now, moving on to the threats to information security. What do you mean by the term threat? In our case, a threat refers to a malicious act or intentions which are aimed at exploiting the loopholes, the vulnerabilities, and therefore compromising the information security. So these malicious acts or intentions may include malicious actors. This could be cyber criminals, could be hackers, sometimes even insiders who may gain authorized access to steal data and disrupt the systems. The second example of a threat is the malware. These are malicious software, they're called malware. These are software programs which are made to cause harm or disrupt operations. Examples of these are things like viruses, worms, Trojan horses, spywares, among others. And then we have something called social engineering, which is also a very big threat. These are techniques that manipulate or cheat or deceive the users into revealing confidential information or performing actions that compromise security. For example, you've had cases where you've received a phone call where somebody wants you to give your PIN number. They pretend to be maybe Safaricom workers, bank workers who want to upgrade your account, your PIN number. So they ask you for your current PIN number, and then they may interfere with your data. Then we have vulnerabilities. This means the weakness or flaws in a system, a software, or a configuration that can be exploited by a threat. Remember, a threat meant the malwares, the insiders, the hackers, among others. So these vulnerabilities, these weaknesses arise from programming errors, system misconfigurations or missettings, or basically outdated software. That's why it's very, very important to keep on updating the software that you are using. Now, we've seen the threats, we've seen the vulnerabilities. Now, what are some of the controls? Security controls are measures or mechanisms which are implemented to mitigate the risk, to take care of the risk and reduce vulnerabilities. Some of the common controls include, number one, access control. These are measures, techniques that prevent access to information systems based on user authentication and authorizations level. Sometimes you may want to access information, but you'll be required to give your password to allow you to access that kind of information. Or you may actually access the system, but you may not access some of the areas that you may want. That's called access control. These are techniques that prevent you from accessing if you don't have the user rights. Then we have the encryption. This basically means to change data to unreadable format during transmission or usage. When the data is encrypted, you must have a decryption key to change it into readable format. Then we have firewalls. These are basically network security devices at the network level that filter the incoming and the outgoing traffic. They basically block unauthorized access or malicious content when it's configured to do so. You can only allow a certain web traffic from coming in and a certain web traffic not to come in. Then some of the security controls also include antivirus software. These basically are programs that are meant to detect, they are meant to remove malicious software from computer systems. There are very many examples of antivirus softwares in the market. For example, you have Avast, which is free. We have among many others. So data backup and recovery is also another security control measure. These are procedures which are used regularly to back up data and restoring the lost data in case they are lost due to corruption of the data or loss. Now, how do we administer this security? First, we have a range of activities that are geared towards administering security. For example, we do risk assessment. That is, we identify and evaluate potential threats. We look at the policy development. We must establish clear guidelines and procedures on information handling, access control, and incident response. We also have to implement the trainings by the users. They must be trained. And of course, monitoring and maintenance. This is continuously checking whether the system, continuously checking the system for suspicious activities, and of course, updating the software regularly. Now, we also have security in the operating system. Now, for this to happen, we must have something called access control function. This involves, number one, identification, which is the process of checking the identity of a user or a process. This can be done by way of a username or password. It can be done by way of using tokens. These are physical or electronic objects that are used to identify users. And we can also use biometrics, which are physical or behavioral characteristics that can be used to identify the user. Examples, for example, we have fingerprint scanner, iris scanner, your voice, etc. Number two, authentication. This is the process of checking, of verifying that a user is whom they claim to be. This is done by comparing the user's identity to a stored credential, such as a password or a biometric template. Number three, authorization as a measure of access control. This is the process of granting a user access to specific resources. This is done by assigning the user to a role which defines the resource that are allowed to access. For example, a guest, a host, among others. Now, type of security, again, at the logical level, that's called the logical security. This is concerned with protecting assets from unauthorized access, unauthorized modification, or destruction of assets. This can be arrived through methods such as access control software. This is a software that is used to check or to manage the user access to resources, whether it's a guest, whether it's a host. This software controls the access. Then we have the firewalls. These are softwares that are used to filter network traffic as they come in. You can block areas that you don't want people to view. For example, pornographic sites can be blocked, among others. Then you have data encryption also at the logical level. This is meant to protect data from unauthorized access. So it encrypts, it changes data into unreadable format that only the person with the key can decrypt and change the data in readable formats again. Now we also have security at the physical level, that is physical security. Now, the physical access exposures or loopholes are the potential vulnerabilities that are due to physical environment, which the computer is located. These exposures sometimes can be exploited by unauthorized individuals who can gain access to sensitive information and disrupt the operations of a business. So some of these exposures are unrestricted access to data centers and computer rooms. That's why computer rooms are always locked and only authorized individuals are allowed to access. Another exposure is the poorly secured workstations and laptops, which can allow unauthorized individuals to steal or even mess up with the equipment. We also have another exposure known as lack of physical security devices. That is, doors without locks, computer rooms without alarms, and security cameras. These are very serious exposures. And of course, improper disposal of sensitive materials. This can allow unauthorized individuals to obtain sensitive information. Now, what are some of the access controls at the physical level? Number one, we have access control list. This is a list of authorized users and the resources that they are allowed to access. We have security guards. These are trained personnel who are responsible for monitoring and controlling access to sensitive information. We have security cameras, and of course, like we mentioned, data encryption. Now, let's look at personnel issues. These are also, personnel are the people interacting with the system. These are some issues from the personnel perspective. For example, we have social engineering. This is the use of deception or manipulation to gain access to sensitive information or systems. I gave you a good example where somebody may ask you for your password for upgrading purposes. This is social engineering. We have unauthorized data access, which can occur when employees access data they are not authorized to view, or data loss, or simply negligence. Those are examples of personnel issues that can bring problems with security. Now let's look at the network security. Now, network security is the protection of computer networks as they are transmitted from and by unauthorized access, modification, or destruction. Mostly it occurs at the local area network. So at the LAN security, this means the protection of computer networks within a limited area, like the building or a campus. Now, some of the controls include firewalls. These are devices that filter network traffic to block unauthorized access, and intrusion detection systems, which monitor traffic, suspicious activities. Now, at the client-server level, this is the protection of client-server applications and the data they transmit from unauthorized access, modification, or destruction. Again, the common security controls include firewalls, data encryption, and user authentication. At the internet level, we have the threats, and some of the common ones are the malware, like I mentioned, the phishing attacks, and cyberbullying. Malware, as I explained, is the software designed to harm or disrupt computer systems, while phishing means an attempt to trick users into revealing sensitive information, such as passwords or credit card numbers. We also have cyberbullying, which could include something like body shaming, etc. Let's now move on to environmental exposures. These are exposures that threat a computer system from a physical environment in which they are located. The common ones include the natural disasters that we have mentioned before: floods, earthquakes, fires, power outages, which is very common in our country. That is sudden loss of power. This can cause hardware damage and data loss. And of course, extreme temperatures. Now, how do we control this? We can control this via environmental monitoring systems. We can use an interrupted power supply to protect or to back up power in the event of power outage. We can use climate-controlled environments, which can protect our hardware from extreme conditions. We can even use dust filters. So let's now move to computer ethics. So this includes privacy, the right of an individual to control their personal information, security, that's the protection of computer systems from unauthorized access, modification, and destruction. We're talking about intellectual property, the protection of works of authorship, such as software, music, and literature, against piracy, and basically social responsibility. This is the use of computers and information technology to benefit society as a whole. Now, the computer ethics are important because it ensures that computers and information technology are used in a responsible and ethical manner by all of us. It also helps to protect the rights and interests of individuals as well as organizations. Some of the key principles include, number one, the respect to privacy. You must respect individual privacy. That is the right to control their personal information. Don't move into people's personal spaces. Number two, accuracy. This refers to the reliability of information and the accuracy of information. And we're talking about, again, property rights. These are intellectual property rights that should be protected. Then finally, social responsibility and accountability. So thank you for listening. That's the end of our lesson today. And this is your assignment to keep you busy throughout the week. Meanwhile, remember to submit your CAT. I've given you my email. Thank you very much. Let's meet next time.